coming through the middle. Now he pulls back. Purdy's looking long. Purdy's got a man. It's caught inside the 30-yard line. Touchdown, Cornhuskers.
All right, welcome back into the Husker corner of the Play the Fight Song podcast. Parks back here with Ben, a recurring guest now. Ben, welcome back. We are here to recap the Iowa game and then talk a little bit on the season as Nebraska season came to a close today, with Minnesota being the top of the APR with a 5-7 record. And there's a couple other teams that qualify for a bowl. So it completely eliminates Nebraska from postseason play, which is tough. But I don't know if would we have really wanted to back into a bowl game, Ben?
Okay, I don't know if I don't think we earned a bowl game to come in at 5-7. It's not how I would want to get a bowl game, but I would have wanted the practices to get better. That's the main thing. I think I've saw a stat that over the last 7 years we've missed out at over 90 practices or something like that. So it's just we need it. So that's what I wanted.
Fair enough. That's a good point. However, let's flip back to Iowa. This past Friday, today is Sunday night. This past Friday, Nebraska takes on Iowa in an ugly battle. Just as advertised. If you watch my preview, you know I got it right on the head. We lost 13-10 on a game-winning field goal, literally right on the head. And it wasn't to the point where, you know, your stomach doesn't you don't get sick to your stomach with one-score losses anymore. And I don't think that's a good thing. I mean, you get mad because you have to, but it's not like a shocking thing anymore for us to lose by one score or like you knew it. Right?
I was sitting there waiting for it. When Tommy Hill got that pick, I was like, no way. I thought that was game though, but I should have known.
Yeah, that was when we got the interception, when Tommy got that pick, you thought, oh my God, wait, we usually are doing that. And that's what it took to beat Iowa last year, was making them make mistakes that we usually make. But instead, we're just going to Nebraska. Nebraska's going to Nebraska. We knew what was going to happen. I mean, to predict the game perfectly on the head like that, from the way it started to the way it finished, is incredibly impressive. And yeah, I'm pumping my own tires because it's very hard to pick a game with unlimited outcomes. But it went, I wouldn't say there was any shockers. Like Deacon Hill was terrible. 11 for 28 and 94 yards and a pick. That guy, I mean, okay. They ran the ball okay. 16 carries from LaShawn Williams, 111 yards, 53 of them came on that last play right before the kick. So I don't know if you want to say that he was a dominant force in the run game. They did drop a touchdown early in the game. They don't really have any weapons on the outside. Their offense was as bad as advertised. Ben, what did you think about Iowa's offense?
Iowa's offense was, it's not great, but neither is ours. They definitely had more complete drives than we had. And they should have had more points on the board, but thank God we were blocking field goals like we hadn't all year. I mean, we blocked the one against Purdue, but it wasn't like a consistent thing with us. So on paper, our offense was technically better coming into that game, but they looked kind of more. They knew their identity, I thought, more and had more complete drives.
And that might be that's been their identity for like 3 or 4 years. Their offense has been significantly just below the conference threshold, and we haven't. So that's a good point. I think that they definitely know who they are and they play to it, but they just it seems like Nebraska and Iowa are very similar teams at the moment, and things are falling Iowa's way and things just are going Nebraska's way. I don't want to say like it's unlucky. It's not like misfortunes. Like they're making the mistakes to make that there. But it seems like Iowa, not just the Nebraska game, Iowa gets those breaks all the time. So
I was in a lot of close games, but it seems like they make one more play to get the win, where Nebraska makes one more mistake to give the game away. And that's what's separating us from not only being Iowa, but just not being Iowa, but like beating Iowa, and then also just being a Big Ten West contender. Like we definitely had a shot to win the Big Ten West earlier in the season, and then we just pissed it away.
Yeah, and it was a wide open inside this year. I mean, how bad was the Big Ten West, man? We want to talk about, we had a 10-win team. Okay. If you are comfortable as an Iowa fan, and I think that's a lot of why they're leaning heavily on the Nebraska win. Understandably, it's a rivalry. But you playing in a conference title next week, and 2 or 3 days after, we're still going to be posting about beating 5-6 Nebraska. Like, hey, buddy, you might want to get ready for the Big Ten championship because whoever's coming in there, well, Michigan coming in there, and they are most likely going to piss pound you. I mean, you saw what happened when you went and played Penn State. It's not going to go good. And I think they know that, but they're going to hang their hat on and they're going to hang their coat on winning the Big Ten West. But if that's the top of the top for you, great. I mean, this is the worst year, I think, of Big Ten football since we've gotten in. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could also look at 2020. 2020 was pretty bad, but this was just awful. It was just such a the Big Ten East was way better than the West. It was not even close.
Yeah, and that's fair to say, right? I mean, the Big Ten East and even the bottom side of those teams, like Indiana had such a plus year in 2020. They're awful this year. They let go of Tom Allen today. I mean, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State look so light years beyond the conference. It's not even funny. So
Well,
it'll be interesting to see when we input 4 really good teams in next year. Go ahead, Ben.
and then even like Rutgers looks a lot better than what they have been. Michigan State made a really good hire. Like the East is, I know the divisions are done, but the teams from the East are looking scarier and scarier. Maryland was figuring things out. It's just, yeah, Big Ten West. I don't know.
It's gonna die in its blaze of glory. That's what it's gonna do because there was no good teams. Iowa won 10 games. I know you're gonna be in here and you're gonna say, "Well, we won 10 games and we won the West." You're not good. We're not good. I'm telling you right now. I'm not saying we are good, but you are not good. There's no good teams in the Big Ten West. Not a single one of them. And if you're asking for Kirk Ferentz to win Big Ten Coach of the Year, you are a psychopath. That goes to David Braun. But okay, let's jump into Nebraska's offense. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
One quick thing about the game and mentioning Kirk. Did you get the sense towards the end of the game that with that interview at the end that this was Kirk's last like conference game before other than the conference championship? Like, do you think he's done?
I don't know. I think he could be. I don't know enough. I haven't listened to him enough in the press conferences throughout the year, the kind of things that he said. I've heard it both ways. I don't know who they'd bring in. I don't know. I mean, they would look like a completely different team. I think Kirk's kind of a wild card in the deck of coaches out there. So I don't know what I would look like. I hope it's not because they're a very beatable team, even when we suck. So it would help if he stayed. But he's been there for like 24 years. He's won 2 conference titles, and that's pretty much it. But yeah. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he's going to stay?
I think it's on the table that he could be done. But I know he came out and said something like, kind of put that to bed many weeks ago, like right when Brian Ferentz got fired. But still, I mean, it's not like he's obligated. He could quit any moment. Maybe things change. I don't know. It just seemed like he was really emotional after that game, and it was a big win for them. I don't know. I just was wondering because I mean, Brian Ferentz, you can tell, is pissed, and he won't wear any Iowa gear. So I just don't know. The whole Ferentz family might be pissed off. So
I think I remember a clip of him saying something along the lines of when his heart's not in it, he's done, and he has no sense of his heart not being in it. And he still enjoys being around the kids. So I don't know. I think that could be just a media answer, but that'd be interesting to see. And I have no idea who they'd get. They'd probably promote within, give it to Phil Parker, if anything, is what my thought would be. But back to our offense in the game. As you can see, the stats below, it's Nebraska. It's very Nebraska. I thought Chuba was good. He by far was a better quarterback on the field. 15 for 28, 189, a touchdown and a pick. That one touchdown goes to Jalen Lloyd, another true freshman on a bomb of a pass. Iowa's biggest defensive play given up on the year. That looked good. Emmett staggered all day, 11 carries for 27 yards. I know, Ben, you're a high on Emmett guy. What did you kind of see from him in our offense in another faulty performance?
I just don't think 11 is enough for Emmett. I know a lot of people say, well, he's a freshman. He's not too big yet. Emmett hasn't played 12 games. Like he started playing after Ramir and Gabe Ervin went down. And never once was Emmett getting up slow or looking like he couldn't handle the load. I think with what our offense is, we needed to be giving Emmett the ball at least 20 times a game, if not more. I know that's a lot to ask out of a true freshman, but he looked like he could handle it. I mean, most of the year he was averaging close to 5 yards a carry. So I don't quite get why we don't feed him more. And if I'm Emmett Johnson, I'd be pissed off. And it just seems like they don't trust him or they don't want to give him the ball. It's
frustrating.
I
hope that Emmett sees the kind of the possibilities here, because I do think he'll be successful if he stays. But with today's modern era of college football, I don't think you're wrong. If they're pissed, then they're just going to go somewhere else. They're going to play and they're going to get 25 carries a game. So I don't think that will happen with Emmett. I think he's kind of appreciative for what he got this year. It wouldn't have been something he would have. So if he was going to leave, he would have done it anyway, because he wouldn't have gotten half any of the carries really that he got this year if those two hadn't gone down. And I know Anthony Grant's going to leave, and Ramir Johnson's, I think, the only returner there. Haven't heard on Gabe Irvin if he'll be back or not, but I know Ramir said he's coming back. So I think he'll have a good chance to be the guy next year, maybe get a heavy workload, but that would really suck if Emmett left. So let's hope not. But positive side, Jalen Lloyd, another touchdown catch, another burnt toast route on Iowa's defense. What do you think on Jalen Lloyd and kind of the other true freshmen from the year that you've seen that's a positive, I guess?
I think when I was watching the game, they said only 2 wide receivers in the Big Ten have 3 or more touchdown catches for more than 50 yards. And it was him and Marvin Harrison from Ohio State. And this time last year, Lloyd did not have a Division I offer. He was going to go run track somewhere. So it gives me hope seeing Rule kind of identifying talent like that. Obviously, we had a lot of young freshman wide receivers in there. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. We're getting IGC back. We're getting, I think, Marcus Washington back next year. So I have hope for our wide receiver core. I was impressed, but also frustrated at times with our young wide receivers. They have speed, they have raw talent, but at times they looked a little lost out there. So that comes with time. I think they'll be all right.
Yes. Okay, let's move into the defenses. Take a look at Iowa first. 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and then special teams go hand in hand with defense. We blocked 2 field goals. Buschini was debatably the better punter on the day. They both punted 7 times for around 250 yards. They averaged, I think Torrey Taylor averaged 42 yards, Buschini averaged 40. Both of them had 2 inside the 20. So I thought our special teams did a good job keeping up. And then 2 blocked field goals. I mean, you're putting yourself in good spots to win games there. But then Alvano misses a 44-yarder right before he drills a 44-yarder, which ends up looking like, and I say this with a very low tone, that these things can change so fast, man. Like, you can look back and say, well, if we would have made that field goal, we would have won it. We could have just killed the clock at the end of the game. They probably do a lot of things differently if we make that field goal. Maybe we don't try a field goal the next time out. So hindsight's 2020, and I don't want to get wrapped up in the Alvano's bad, but I know, Ben, you're a guy who's had his doubts about Alvano. So kind of what did you see from special teams and Iowa's defense hand in hand?
I've been frustrated with Alvano because he shows flashes of being really good. He's got the leg. I won't argue anyone on that. I just don't think he's as accurate as we want him to be quite yet. He was, I think, finished 110th best kicker in the country for accuracy. I just was hoping, I think we've been really loyal to him. Bleak Road was 8 of 9 the last 6 games last year, first field goals. And I think he was 34 of 35 or 32 of 33 on PATs. So I was just, with all of the misses we had from Alvano, I was wondering if we would go to Bleak Road. I mean, shit, Iowa did it, their last field goal, and it worked out. And I think Rule or Foley has said before, Bleak Road is more accurate but does not have the leg. Alvano has the leg. So I feel like 44, I feel like Bleak Road could maybe make that. I haven't seen enough of him, but obviously that's for the coaches to figure out. But I don't know. Maybe we could have seen him a little bit in the season. But other than that, our special teams have been pretty good. I mean, Phelan Stanford downing the ball on the 1 was awesome on that punt. I'm glad we didn't fake a field goal like Rule said he was going to. And I do like that we've mixed it up and actually have faked a few punts and stuff like that, faked a field goal against La Tech. That's good to see that we are trying to put 6 on the board. But overall, I've been pretty happy with special teams, way better than what it was under Frost.
We do have to mention Nebraska loses the turnover battle again. 3 turnovers to 1 in favor of the Hawks again. Iowa throws the pick at the end of the game. Ethan Nation, first quarter, leads off with a fumble on a punt return. So that is the only knock on our special teams that came to mind. And then Purdy puts the ball on the ground once, and they recover it, puts the ball on the ground the second time. We get it back. And then finally, I mean, the pick that ended the game by a D lineman. So the end of the game, Ben, we got to talk about it. You got to come up with a stop there. You can't give up a dive for 53 yards to make that backup kicker named Marshall Meter knuckle a 30-yarder in to beat Nebraska. They're not kicking a field goal from there, right?
Yeah, I just think I don't know what I think. I don't know what went wrong.
That pause was all Nebraska. That second guessing, that's so Nebraska.
I'll be honest, I haven't really looked back and watched that play. I was too frustrated. But yeah, you got to make a stop there. I don't want to hammer that on the defense too much after they carried our team this whole season. One thing I do want to ask you, though, kind of backtracking a little bit, why do you think Ethan Nation was out there on that punt? Why not Billy Kemp? He was healthy.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I guess I think Rule had mentioned in a presser that Ethan Nation, him and his parents decided to burn his red shirt. So they said that they found him. That's his best fit, is to be out there for punt return. He offers more of a return game than Billy does. And maybe Billy, I mean, that was before Billy got whacked on that weird play. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I do think he looks elusive when he gets the ball, but I wish we would do that more on offense. Like, if he's elusive, what hurts to put him out on our offense? Like, throw him a screen and see what happens. What's the difference between throwing to him or Alex Bullock for a loss of 5?
Or
I actually thought Bullock was good.
Or Tommy Hill. Like we played Tommy Hill both ways for a while. So yeah, that's a good point. I just think in a game like Iowa, Nebraska, where we know it's going to be low scoring, put Kemp back there. He has 3 drop punts in his whole career. So that's why I thought you need to play it safe there. That's a game you need to be very conservative, I thought.
Yeah, and they were at times, like Rule punting it down when we were on the 40-yard line going in, putting it down to the 1. That's the kind of the things you need to do to beat Iowa. I mean, I think in any situation, and you saw the 2 guys on CBS with the punt crew necks on, but any situation in that game, you punt the ball, make Iowa's offense beat you, because they're not going to. And then when you gift them an opportunity on our side of the 50 at the end of the game, they're going to hurt you, because that's kind of the team that they are. That's how they built themselves to what they are. I don't want to say to the Mecca, but to what they are. And then that's how they beat us this time again. So it wasn't a shock. It wasn't a thing where like we were like, oh, not again. Like it is what it is. You're almost numb to it. It's like a PTSD. So, I mean, put it in the dirt. We lost to Iowa. Okay. We were never supposed to win that game. I think Vegas was the only one who had us winning that game. I sure wasn't. But I think I was in for a world of hurt. So I get why they're leaning on this game so hard. But they've experienced a lot of injuries. I think a lot of teams have. So it's hard to be like, I don't see that offense being much different with Cade McNamara. Maybe different with Eric All, because their outside weapons were terrible. But what did you kind of closing thoughts on the Iowa game, Ben, and kind of the wrap up on that of what you took away from it? Like, how mad did your anger last less time than normal?
I don't know. It's still brewing. My closing thoughts on it, I think there's a lot of things Rule needs to clean up that were there's a light shined on in that game, like Alvano not being on the field and having to waste a timeout before we punted it to the 1. And we wasted a lot of stupid timeouts. So I just think Rule needs to work on a lot of things, organizing his sideline, better clock management, things like that. Not even on the players. But you know what? And I remember coming into the season looking at Rule's first years at school and thinking that he doesn't normally do very well. I'm like, okay, I just want to relax this season. And then we started winning games and looked like there was a bowl in sight. And I got my hopes up, and now it feels like a letdown. But this is Rule's best first year out of school. So I'm optimistic to see what's going to happen. But I'm also nervous because Satterfield's still around. I don't think this is the type of offense he wants us to be, like similar to Iowa's. So I'm hoping there's going to be some changes. Obviously, we need to go get a quarterback in the portal.
And that's a perfect lead into the next segment. And we're just going to wrap up Nebraska season. As we know, we're all done. But Nebraska drops 4 in a row to miss bowl eligibility for the 7th straight year. Transfer portal opens December 4th. What do we need? What do we need as a team to kind of fill the gaps that we've lost this year? I mean, we lost lots of injury. So maybe it's not a thing where we need to clean house and go get fully D on it, but it's a thing that we need to go get specific spots. And I think quarterback, you've already mentioned, is a great spot to start. Who do we need? Kind of a name that's already been in there. Tyler Shuck from Texas Tech. That's a great name for Nebraska to kind of take a look at. But kind of what positions are you seeing? Kind of who are you hoping we kind of replace that we can get more serviceability out of?
You know what? O-line showed a lot of improvement. I think an O-lineman is tough to get in the portal. So that's something I don't want us to rely on. I think we need to coach them up, build depth there. Obviously, a quarterback. I think we need to either have someone on our roster or go in the portal, have someone replace Gifford. Gifford was a beast for us. So that's and then just an experienced downfield threat at a wide receiver. I know what's that guy, the A&M 5-star wide receiver, DeMoss, that we offered. I think that could be our guy. And if not, we need to get someone. I mean, missing Trey Palmer, not having him really sucked. So, but I don't think there's a lot we need to go get in the portal. I really don't.
Quarterback is a big piece, though. I know.
Yes. But we're young and we had a lot of injuries, and I'm not saying that's not an excuse, but I'm just saying I think we have a lot of talent, more than we did with Scott Frost. And Scott Frost recruited pretty well for us. I think we have I texted this to you today. It was so refreshing to see guys that probably could go to the NFL want to come back here. We have Ty Robinson coming back. I don't know if Nash could get drafted, but the fact that he maybe could. See him coming back. It's nice to see that they want to win, and we're having those talented guys come back. Some people said getting Ty Robinson back is equivalent to getting a 4 or 5-star D lineman in the portal. So that's nice to see and exciting.
Fair enough. Okay. From my point of view, obviously the quarterback's the biggest spot, and you're in agreement. I mean, they probably accounted for 75% of our losses here. I don't want to say singularly on them, but their plays attributed to the biggest play of the game that maybe lost us it. So I don't want to say they lost us the game because there's multiple factors, but it was either the pick at the end of the game, a fumble, turnovers throughout the game that usually lost us our matchups this year when we did lose, and other players making the plays when we did win. So let's take a look over the schedule and kind of see. This is another great Nebraska move right here. 13-10 was the detrimental recurrence this year. 3 times we lost 13-10, all 3 of them on game-winning field goals. That's Minnesota all the way back in August. Then we lost to Maryland 2 weeks ago at home, 13-10, and then we lost to Iowa this week, 13-10. So I think the special teams will be good. I like Alvano. I'm not a guy that's out on him. I think his accuracy will come. I think he's a true freshman. Same thing with Jalen Lloyd. I know you mentioned we're looking at wide receivers in the portal. We have a lot of stud young wide receivers. I think they'll get the work done. It'll be sweet to see them develop. I feel better about them developing than I do our offensive linemen who feel like they've been here for 5 years. You have a lot of good names floating around. Grant Brick's still in the mix to come to Nebraska. What do you hear and what are you looking for from the recruiting side of things? Not much transfer portal from Nebraska. Who are the big names that we need to get?
Bricks, obviously, it looks like we did get him. I mean, he's getting a ton of crystal balls to us. I think it's all but been announced or has been announced just under the radar. So that's great. I mean, Daniel Kalen coming in, a lot of people think he could be battling for a job. I think they might redshirt him. Caleb Benning was huge. That was one guy you were excited. Then 2025 class, I think that's a class that we should really be excited about. They're off to a pretty good start, getting some in-state kids. But yeah, I've been pretty happy with recruiting. I don't know if they're just so young that I don't know if there's anyone I'm really zoning in on saying like, hey, this guy's going to come in and make an impact right away. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think Kalen would probably be that name for now. I know we've gotten a couple of walk-on offers this past week. Ethan Duda out of Elkhorn South, another Omaha kid. He looked pretty good in the state title game, made some plays on the defensive side of the ball. I don't really know what they recruited him as. I would assume it's defense, and depth always helps. It helped us tremendously throughout this year. I think there's a lot of holes on our defense that we're going to have to fill, Gifford being one of them, Reimer being one of them, Quentin Newsom being one of them. So you have to have a lot of good guys step up, a lot of young guys step. Omar Brown's another one of those that just came to mind. So defensively, I think it's almost as shaky as the offense now with the players that we're losing. So what do you see from the defense, Ben? Kind of where do you think our biggest hole will be with the guys that we're losing?
I think it'll be in our secondary. Everything I've read on Twitter and kind of message boards, stuff like that, is Rule is in love with our freshman D-line class right now. I mean, you have Van Poppel, you got Princewell, you got Cameron Lenhart. So those guys are going to, I think, be the anchor of our defense for a long time. I'm excited about them. I think our linebackers will be all right. We have Bullock. Heinrich he's done, isn't he? Right?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I don't think he would bounce back even if he could.
But I feel like even this year our secondary has still been the kind of weak part of our defense. It's still been very good, but I feel like we could tighten up pass coverage a little bit. We get nickel and dimed a lot. We don't really give up big plays all the like downfield big passes a lot. And when we do, like was it Northwestern, we can run them down at the inside the 10 and get a goal line stand. So I would have to say our secondary.
Yeah, replacing the depth. Number one, secondary is a big piece of that. Quentin Newsome, if you're an NFL team out there and by some God's grace you're listening to this, take him because he's that good. So I think you'll see a lot of guys on Sunday from that defense and their opportunities. I think Rule obviously has the connections. Doing what he did in Carolina, I'm sure he's still built connections personally, not as much fan-wise, but Carolina's terrible again. Going back to us throughout the year, you know, what was your preseason takeaway? Because I didn't share this last week, but I really thought I was mentally prepared at the beginning of the year to be a Matt Rule team and to go 2-10, to go 3-8. Like I thought 6-6 was the ceiling, and we're one game below it, and it feels like it was just a failure of a season because we were at 5-3 at one point. But really, when I look at my preseason expectations, are we that far off? Like we were set our ceiling. Like I thought 7 wins was the max I could see this team getting with the talent we had coming back, with the unknowns, and even with the talent that we had coming back, they all got injured. So it was just the unknowns. And we get five wins and it feels like a complete failure. And I know some fans out there don't agree, but kind of what were you taking back from your preseason to your now after really stepping back and looking at it, anger aside?
I thought 7-5 was reachable, but you never know with Nebraska. I couldn't really tell. I known Rule's record, first year record at previous schools. So it does feel like a letdown. I think I looked at the season being a success as if we went to a bowl game. That was going to be just to get the practices, get better. Yeah. That's in my eyes. But you have to think about it. Rule has already gotten the best record Scott Frost ever had here. It was 5-7 under Scott Frost. So I think there's a lot to build off of from the season. So next schedule, the conference gets harder. That's for sure. But I think Rule shown second year is when he takes big strides. I know college football is different since he's last been here, and he was probably in a better situation at Nebraska than he was at Temple or Baylor. But I still think he's going to take a big stride next year and get us over the hump to a bowl game. I pray to God.
Yeah, and on the fan side of things, just to close this all up, on the fan side of things, kind of what we need to do. I don't know if it's the right time. I know everything in your body with the distress, with the stress, with the emotional damage that this team has done to you. It tells you stop cheering for Nebraska. Don't tell anybody to cheer for Nebraska. Don't go to the games. Like you feel so checked out at this point. It's understandably probably the most emotionally draining place you can be, of a team you can be a fan of. This is by far the most emotionally draining team, I think. I mean, maybe the Bears, but that's a I mean, right? So as a fan, please don't do that. Still show up for our team, be Nebraska fans. That's what makes us the greatest fans in college football, is we're there through thick and thin. I think that we're going in the right direction. I think Akron next year, we need to get it rolling. It'll be nice to start 1-0 and not start on the
UTEP.
That's one? I thought it was Akron, then UTEP.
UTEP, UNI, Colorado.
Is Akron the year after? Are you sure?
I'm 100%. 100%.
Okay, so UTEP sucks. They fired their head coach today. So that'll be a new team. Granted, in my immediate thought when you said that is, all right, they're going to have a new coach, and that what a team to come in and just beat Nebraska to start your tenure at UTEP. Like, I've seen that before over the last 7 years. Like, see, that's the PTSD this team's put us through. So UTEP this next year, good call. Thank God you're here. Come out rocking, start off 1-0 and see what you go from there. Cause it's also been difficult. Another point that nobody talks about is starting on the year 6 years in a row on the road in conference is not easy. So it'll be a nice change of pace. And I know you're passionate about that, Ben, but what do you think that we need to see from the fan base? And I know we're probably two of the more negative people when it comes to losing. But what do you think the fan base needs to do? I know you've said over the last week, you've said some things along the lines of maybe we need to stop going to games. We got to stop the streak, sell it out, stop it, reset.
I feel the past few years before Trev got here, I feel like we've just been taken advantage of as fans by the athletic department, trotting shit product on the field and thinking, well, they'll still come. So I'm just very, and this isn't on Rule because he's been here 1 year. My patience is gone with this team right now. I mean, it's not. We got to support them. That's what we do. That's what makes people want to come to Nebraska, play for our fans. I just think we do need to see something on the field soon, though. That's gonna keep people coming back. I mean, not everyone's like me and you, Cam. Not everyone wants to come and cheer on a team that's 3-8 or whatever the record's gonna be. So I think we need to see something soon to keep that solid streak alive, and that's a big selling point to recruits.
I like it. Okay. Well, that wraps everything up. It's been an up and down 2023 for Nebraska. If you have a comment, if you think we're morons, drop a comment. Tell us. We'll bring you on. We'd love to argue with you about it because I want to hear other people's perspectives, as this is the Husker perspective. Listen to Play the Fight Song podcast. Conference Championship week coming up. We'll break them all down for you. Ben, thanks for joining. Thanks for sticking through thick and thin. Being in Nebraska, it's not the easiest life, but it's the life we chose, and I'm glad I'm a part of it. So love you. Go Big Red.